Great. Yeah. Good evening, all. Welcome to 11th week problem solving session. We are almost nearing the end. And yeah, we'll first start with the assignment quizzes and then we'll come back to the programming questions. This week's programming questions were really easy. At least the last run's programming questions were quite easy. I mean, I found them to be like very quickly I was able to get the code. Yeah. So, like this week during lectures, there were many new things introduced. So as usual, the later, just like last week, this week's assignment quizzes are also mostly theory based. So we just have to listen to the lectures carefully to be able to answer questions from the assignment 11, like week 11 assignment 11 questions. Yeah. So here is the notation given. So there were a couple of questions where we need to keep these notations in mind. So what is DD, what is MM, and what is the capital MM, what is small mm. Yeah. So small mm stands for month, and capital MM would be the minutes in the time this thing. So there was the concept of time zones introduced in the lecture. So there are many questions on that time zone and current time, all those things. Yeah. So we'll move on to question 1 for week 11, and let's begin today's session. Yeah. So which library is used for the browser automation? Yeah. So what exactly is browser automation? So that is also explained in the lecture, but I'll quickly tell you that when we write the Python code, we need to interact with the interface. That interface is provided by the browser. So that seamless interaction between Python and the browser. For that, there is this Selenium. Option C, Selenium library, which helps us in seamlessly interfacing with the browsers. Yeah, so like database linkages, the GUI render, etc., all these things. So we have many instances are created, and there are many functions under the Selenium library. So this that is, I think, the theory part. Yeah. So coming to the question 2, what does this function will return? Time. Yeah. So time generally returns the time in seconds. So it will not give the standard time like hours, minutes, and seconds, but it will convert the entire time into seconds, and it will return it as a big float number. Right? Say for instance, it's 7:03 p.m. So it will convert it 7 into how many minutes, like, no? So 7 is what, I think 19. So 19 hours, it will convert into minutes, and that into seconds, and add the 3 minutes seconds and the current seconds into it, and it will return the entire the breakage of hour, minute, seconds, and convert it into just seconds and return it into seconds. Yeah. So which library is used to get all the time zones? Yeah. So as the name suggests, time zone, TZ is the short form. So the educated guess would be option D. PY stands for Python and TZ stands for time zone. Yeah. We have seen the Selenium is already used for browser automation. Yeah, browser interaction or browser automation. Then calendar, there is no such library. Then NTLK is the library which is used for natural language processing. Yeah, you remember natural language processing? At that time we had seen that NTLK is the library which is used, and this is the Python time zone library. So the correct answer is option D. Yeah. So going on to next question, which is question 4. Output of this particular code, what will be the output for this code? So we are importing datetime library, and instance is getting created as dt. So now this dt.now, that will return what is the current time. Yeah. So this is the inbuilt function which will return the current time. Yeah. So but in what format it will return? So always from the bigger to lower. That means year will come first, followed by month, then date, then hour, minutes, seconds, and milliseconds. Yeah, in that order it will return date and time. Yeah, so date and time is almost like so first is date and then the time. So obviously option B is out of question because it is the time first followed by date. So it generally returns the date first and followed by the time. Yeah, so we'll just check the format in which, yeah, so option D has the year first. So let's check year, month, date, hour, minutes, seconds, and milliseconds. So this is the correct format of date and time representation in Python. Yeah, so the correct answer is option D. So we can use the same web drivers for different browser. That's the question 5. We have to say whether it is true or false. Oh, okay, yeah, we'll try to cover to that. So I keep on pushing. So Roshan has raised a query or request, we can say. So he's asking me for some tips to clear the online programming test at the end of the session. So I always, every session for past, I think 2-3 sessions, I have been repeatedly telling you about developing the algorithmic thinking and first writing your thought process. Think like algorithm, write it in English and then convert it into Python. So I will again reiterate the same thing and will closely work with that theme only while solving the programming questions. So yeah, we'll cover that as well. Yeah. So coming to question 5, so you have to tell me if this statement is true or false. The same web driver. Yeah. So the same web driver cannot be used because every browser will have different way of storing the data, different way of interaction, etc. So every browser will have different instance, the way it interacts with the Python or the way it interfaces with the browser and the Python, that is different for every browser. For Firefox it is different, for Chrome it is different. So currently these are the two most common browsers. So it has a different requirements, so it cannot, same driver cannot be used. The same library is used, that is Selenium library, but each driver instance is different. For Firefox it is different and for Chrome it is different. Yeah, so we use different web drivers for different browsers. So this statement is false. We cannot use the same same driver for each and every web browser. Yeah, so question 6 says what will be the output of the following code. Yeah, so let's have a look at this particular code. So we have imported time zone library. Yeah, and there's a date time instance. So zone is equal to pytz dot all time zones. That means what will this do? It will return all the time zones and store it in zone. It could be the list or the array. Yeah, so now in the for loop what is happening, I in the range of length of zone. Yeah, so how many zones, every zone index we are accessing. Yeah, not the item set but the index access. So now what is happening here, print dt.now, that means the current date and time from pytz.time zone ith index. Yeah, so that means whatever time zones we had stored in zone, that means all the time zones. So for every time zone it will print the current date and time. Yeah, so it will print the current date and time of the all time zones. Option A. Yeah, so coming to question 7, what will be the output of the system if the date is 10 December 2021 Friday? Yeah, so let us look at the code first to understand it. Yeah, so from datetime library, so we have created the instance dt. So now we are storing day as what is the date today, so it will return today's date. So now date here is the Friday, so now variable day will have the value Friday. So now print day is weekday. Which weekday is Friday? Yeah. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. Friday is the 5th day, right? 5th day. But here it will return the index. Index always starts from 0. So it will be 5 minus 1, 4. So the output will be 4. Yeah. So you always keep in mind the weekdays and the weekends, the day name of the days will be stored in the form of list. So the index will be returned here in this function. Yeah, the day dot weekend, this function will return the index. Yeah, so the index will start from 0. So Friday become 4th day. Weekday I am counting from Monday to Friday. So 5th day becomes index becomes 4. So the answer becomes option C. Yeah. Okay. Moving on to question 8. Which of the statement will return the calendar for the whole year? So yeah, calendar for the entire year. So this is the function which you might have to remember. Yeah. So yeah, Shobhaji, you're right. The option C will return the correct answer. Calendar dot prcal, and into bracket we have to give them which year calendar we want. Yeah. So it's a syntax based question which you will have to remember. Yeah.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
can I explain the PRL call, ma'am? What is the PRL?
It's that's what I'm telling you, it's a function. There's no explanation for prcal. It's a inbuilt function from calendar instance that you can call the prcal and pass year as an argument, so it will return you the entire calendar for the entire year, for all the months. Yeah?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So yeah, it is like some of the questions are syntax specific. They are to check whether you remember if there is any argument to be given, or there is any special word or special letters which are part of, like what are the hyphen and all those things, if there is a dot in between. So these are the nounces which you need to remember for certain functions. So maybe the certain this thing. Yeah, right. So all these things you need to remember. There's no shortcut for that. You need to go to go through the lectures and make your own notes of what special functions or what new functions are being used while teaching, and that will help you in preparing for your exam. Yeah. So I will advise, before exam, watch all the videos, all the lecture videos, prepare your own notes, have a important, you can make different segments, some of the theories, something related to libraries, something related to functions. So you mention the syntax of everything, and you prepare a concise notes, so that will help in revising. So question 9, which statement we can come out from the loop? Oh, so so yeah, I'm getting answers for that question 9, and I was wondering if everyone needs a break or not. Yeah, okay, yeah, so correct. The correct answer is break, option D. Yeah, everyone's correct. Yeah. So coming to the last question of assignment, question 10. Check with the whether the year is the leap year or not. Yeah. So the correct answer for this, any guesses? Yes, correct answer is option C. Absolutely correct. Is leap, and then in the bracket will pass the year as the argument, and it will check. Yeah, so exactly this thing I was mentioning, that there are functions where you need to pay attention to small details, whether there is a full stop, whether there is a underscore, all those things you need to be mindful about. Yeah. So one advice would be, while watching the videos, you make note somewhere about all the syntax related. You can sit with a huge A4 size sheet and make different columns, some theory related part in one column, some syntax related pointers in one column, what is used for what. So all those things, you can for 1 week you can have a one A4 sheet. So that just going through that A4 sheet should be able to help you learn about different theory part which are getting discussed in the lectures, the syntaxes of different functions which are getting discussed then. So that is my tip for preparing for the theory exam. Yeah. So you make your own notes out of the lectures, and you can take help from the PDFs which we have shared. Yeah, so all where I'm scribbling in the side, so that also you can take or you can extract some new information from those PDFs. Yeah? So don't leave everything for the last moment. Start watching the videos slowly and make your own notes. Even if you have gone through the videos, try to make notes and revise from them, so that your score will be better in the exam. Yeah, so we know so I think this is my general observation in the initial. Oh, okay. Padma Priya, you want me to retake the first 3 questions of this same assignment, quiz assignment? Yeah. So yeah, these are the first 3 questions, which were very easy, probably directly straightforward from the theory part. Which library is used for browser automation? So we saw the NLTK library is used for NLP functions. This has been covered in previous weeks. NumPy is for mathematical functions and interacting with the matrices and etc. And then there comes the Selenium library, which is used for browser automation. So browser automation is how Python will have an interface with the internet browser, and how we can do the backend coding for the browser using the Python. So there has to be one communicator wherein the Python can communicate. It can open new URL, so when user clicks somewhere, or when user tries to minimize or maximize the browser, then what are the changes needs to be made, so that that is taken care of by this Selenium library. Those actions, Selenium is the interface for such actions. Yeah. So what time will return is, it will return time in seconds. It will convert the current time into seconds. Hours, minutes, seconds, everything is converted into seconds, and a huge float number, the large number, is returned in the float format. Yeah. So the large number is returned in the float format. Now the question 3, which library is used to get all the time zone? PyTZ will return all the time zones in the Python. Yeah, so these were the first 3 questions. Yeah? So any more request? Can we move to the programming questions, programming assignments? Padma Priya, are you now okay with it? Okay, fine. So let's move on to programming questions. So I don't know, for first almost 6-7 weeks we were stretching this session for more than 1.5 hours. We were closing this session at 8:30, 8:35 sometimes. But now within, I think it's 7:18, so we are quickly finished. We are almost finished the assignment questions, and I'm not going too fast. We are discussing, we are chatting about how to prepare for the exam and all that thing, and now within 18 minutes we are into programming assignments. And as I mentioned, even the programming questions this week, I found them to be little easy compared to previous weeks. Yeah, because we are not using any new function or any new technique. We are not implying anything new here. So whatever functions, Python functions we had used in till last week, the same functions we are using in this week's assignment. Yeah. So I will take one suggestion by Roshan, where he had asked any tips for tackling the programming questions. Yeah. So I noticed that we are around 15, because I am joined from the 2 IDs, and total there are 17 people. So we can actually, all of you can unmute, and we can attempt this programming questions in participatory manner. Everyone can weigh in whenever required. Yeah. So you don't need to type anything. You can just unmute and participate. Yeah. So let's together come up with an algorithm to solve this particular problem. Yeah. So the problem given to us, that take 3 sides of a triangle as an input. So we know how to take multiple inputs in single line. Yeah. So I have shared the syntax also with you. I will share it again today. So what we can use is within the input function, we can use input.split wala thing. Split with the empty bracket. So that means in the single line, user can enter three numbers separated by spaces, and we can store it in the form of list. Yeah, so in one line we can accept all the three inputs. Yeah, so this first part, like the first line, is just the input function in one line. Yeah, so you already know how to do that, and we'll discuss it again, how to do that, and I'll explain that input function again so that all of you also remember it. Now coming to the second part, now we have to find whether the triangle is a right angle triangle or not. If it is right angled, then we have to print yes. If it is not right angled, then we have to print no. That means we need to check for some condition. How we will check that condition? You can either type in the chat box or unmute. We are very few people, so you can unmute also.
Ma'am, by using Pythagoras theorem, by programming Pythagoras theorem in the program.
Absolutely. So what does Pythagoras theorem says?
Ma'am, base square plus perpendicular square equal
hypotenuse square. So logically, Aditya, tell me, Aditya or anyone else, and not specifically for Aditya. So Aditya told us the formula for Pythagoras theorem. I'll write it down here. Hypotenuse square is equal to base square plus height square. Yeah, so that means we need to check for this condition. Yeah, so using which Python function we can check the condition? Can anyone unmute and tell me which is the Python function, or whatever the code, the statement, conditional statement, which of the statement will give us the will be enabling us to check whether the particular condition is true or false?
If statement.
Yes, absolutely, Uma. If statement. Yeah, so we can use if statement to check this condition. Yeah, so was it easy or was it difficult to think about these things? So
easy,
right? So if such question comes, you just need to think about how you will solve as a human, and then you will think about how a computer will solve. Okay, so now we know we need to check this condition using the if statement, and before that the first step would be to accept the input, and the second step would be to check the condition, and if this is true, then print yes. If it is false, then print no. Right? This will be the third condition. Am I right? Everyone agrees with me? It's not very difficult. There's no rocket science involved. Very simple. But now how we will come to know which of the three input sides is hypotenuse, which is base, and which is height?
Ma'am, we will find the longest side.
Absolutely. So yeah, so for that what we will do? What Python function we can use to find the largest and the smallest? How you will do?
Sort.
Yes. So we can, Shobhaji, you're right, we can use max or we can sort. Yeah, so that we need to do after input. Yeah, so the second step, between first and second step, there comes the additional step. Yeah, so now second step will become third, and the third step will become fourth. Yeah, so we need to either sort or find largest input. Yeah, so everyone agrees. So now we have completed all the statements, so now let us first think like a compiler and think like a computer. So first we will use the input statement. So now we have a list which will give us the list of three numbers or three different numbers, but we will use the list so that we can sort or find the largest number using the max. Yeah, so this is how we will think about our ease of implementation. So instead of using three separate variables to store three inputs, we will use the list to store all the inputs and use the sort function. Otherwise we will have to compare all three numbers and then determine which one was the largest. Yeah, so instead one statement input, whatever input, we will store it in the list called L. And we will sort that list for our ease. Now sorting, if we sort in descending order, that means the 0th index will be our hypotenuse, right? And base or height doesn't matter, so length of first index will be base, and L of second index, the second index list would be side 2. Yeah, side 1 square plus side 2 square is hypotenuse. Yeah, so now we know how to access the hypotenuse, base and height. So we are now done with the condition of if statement, and if that is true then we will print yes, if that is false then we will print no. Okay, so now let's go to the code and see how I have done it. Yeah, so I have done it exactly the same way in which we have done this discussion. I am accepting the input, multiple inputs separated by space. So input dot split function is how we are accepting the 3 numbers in a single line and storing it in the list called L, capital L. Yeah, so capital L dot sort, and I'm sorting it in the reverse manner. Yeah, so L dot sort will sort in the ascending order. That is also fine, but I have done it in the descending order. So if I'm doing it in the ascending order, then I have to make changes here in the index of the elements, which is the hypotenuse and which are the height and base. So I have to be mindful of that. Yeah, so I am sorting here in descending order. So my first element is the largest element, which is the possible hypotenuse. Yeah, so now let us look at the condition here. So what condition I am checking? For this I am using math library. Yeah, so I have imported math, import.math. This we had seen in last week's assignment also, where we had calculated the distances between different coordinates of schools and house coordinates. Yeah, so similarly what I am doing is list second element square plus list ka third element square. I am adding them both and taking square root of it and comparing it against first element, list ka first element L of 0. So now if this condition is true, I am printing yes, else I am printing no. Yeah, so now let us check this. So any doubts? Meanwhile it is compiling, I can take up doubts. So any doubts, anything you did not understand in this code? So most fun part of this code is we worked the logic and then we just converted our logic, what we had thought, into English here. Sorry, in Python here, not English, in Python. So can you tell me can you give me 3 numbers to test against this thing? Any 3 numbers, random 3 numbers. Either you can unmute and tell me, or
5, 4, 6.
Sorry, what?
5, 4, 6.
5, 4, 6. 5, 4 and 6. So it should return no, because I think 5, 4, 6 is not the Pythagoras triangle thing. Yeah, so it is returning no. Yeah, so can you see that no has returned? So it is working fine. Now any small like 3, 4, 5 should return the yes. Yeah, so let's try for 3, 4, 5. 3, 4 and 5. Yes, 3, 4, 5, yes. So it is giving the proper output to us. Yeah, so everyone agrees with this, there are no doubts. So we'll move on to the next question. Okay, so next question is even easier to do. Yeah, so next question, write a program that accepts hash separated sequence. Yeah, so before I go to this, let me just explain this input function. So I have explained it several times before, but again today I will explain this again, because I'm using this split function to again accepting input separated by that hash sign. Yeah, so here what is happening is, this is the typecasting int I. Can you see the cursor here? Yeah, so this int I statement is used for typecasting. I am converting the input into integer, because by default the Python int type is the string. So I don't want numbers in the string format. I want the numbers in the integer format. So this int I is for typecasting the input. Now the for loop, from the for loop, the input starts. And these square brackets depict the elements of this list L. Yeah. So for I, in all the inputs, whatever, as many numbers we want to enter, those many numbers. There's no upper cap on this input statement. Yeah. So for all the i's which are input, dot split. So this input empty bracket is for accepting the input through the keyboard, and dot split is when we are inputting multiple things in the same line. Yeah, so we are using this split. Empty bracket means there is an empty space which is separating the input. Yeah, so we entered 3, 4, 5 in the same line. They were separated by space. Yeah, so that is how the number 3 is stored separately as 0th element in the list. Number 4 is stored as first element in the list, and number 5 stored as second element in the list. Yeah, so I'm getting one suggestion from Satyakant ji saying finding square root can be avoided. The comparison will give the correct results even without that. That will avoid one operation, making the program faster. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct, and will not require any library. Yes, that is also a suggestion where we can compare the squares directly. Yeah, the L0 square is equal to L1 square plus L2 square. That also can be done. Yeah, so there is no one fixed way to implement any code. Yeah, you can always come up with a better way. Yeah. No, that will not be the case, Purushottam ji, because it will be typecasting everything into integer. So if we enter any letter or any special character, its ASCII code will be taken. The integer format of its ASCII code will be taken. And that if at all it comes up to be the Pythagoras triangle, the ASCII codes happen to be falling under the Pythagoras triangle number, that condition is satisfied, then it will print yes, otherwise it will print no, because I am using the typecasting thing, no, so it will convert it into code. Yeah. Okay, so moving on to the next question. So now I have explained the split function in detail. So now write a program that accepts the hash separated sequence of words as input. So that means we can use split hash for it. Yeah. So input bracket dot split hash for this thing. Write a program that accepts. So one line would be this, part 1 would be this. Then print the words in hash separated sequence after sorting them alphabetically in reverse order. So that means we need to store this into a list. Then second statement, sort list into reverse order. Yeah, reverse order. So we don't even need to think about any algorithm here. There is a function, one function for accepting the hash separated input, then the second function for sorting the input, the elements in the list in the reverse order. Yeah, and then third is printing. Again adding the hash. So we will use print using the join function. Yeah, join with the hash, right? So just the 3 statements we have to use. It will be a 3-liner code. Yeah, so that is what is happening here. So we are storing, the first line is input for x. So here I'm not typecasting it, I'm storing it as it is. So all the items, this where did it go? The first line, all the items here, that the square bracket depicts all the elements in the list called items. So all the x are items. So for all the x in the input which are split using hash. So that means when the user will enter the input using see here the input is hey hash input hash by. Yeah, so all the words are separated using hash. So what this statement will do is it will remove the hash, it will slice that long string at the hash, and it will store each part as the one element of the list. Yeah, so the list items will have hey as the 0th element, first element would be input, and the second element would be by. Yeah, and now in the second line, items dot sort reverse is equal to true. That means we are sorting it in the descending order or the reverse order. And in the third statement, which we are using join all the elements of the list items using the hash. Yeah, so this is the meaning of this print statement. So now let us run it. Let us say hi hash, where did hash go? Hash hello. Maybe we can maybe we can have some yellow and hash say zebra. Now return. So it should sort in the reverse order. This in simple English word, what the question is asking us to do is sort these elements in the reverse order while retaining the separator of hash. The special character hash should be used as a separator there. Yeah, so this is the input. So the simple 3-line program for this question, where we are accepting input using the split hash function, then we are sorting it in the reverse order and using the join function to print. Yeah, so any doubts in this this question, or anybody thinks there's other way or different way to do that? So we can actually discuss the different ways, like Satyakanta ji said that we can avoid using square root and directly compare the squares. Even Aditya suggested we check if the squares and the sum of the squares are equal. So do you think that there is any other way? Or I personally feel this is the simplest way to implement this. There are no complications. But if anybody thinks of some other ways also, we can discuss that as well.
Ma'am, we can avoid using functions and make functions of our own.
Yes, of course we can use it, but I wanted to avoid that because there are already functions, right?
Longer.
Yeah, it will be little longer, na? When we are writing the functions, it will be little longer since it is not numbers. Working with numbers is little easy. Here we are working with the strings and alphabets, so you will require a lot of time to write your own sorting function for this, or the joining functions. No, joining will be easy to write in your own code, but sorting, I think it will take some good amount of time to write the code for that, because you will have to like convert it into ASCII, and then because you can't use the sort function, so yeah. Or otherwise put this 3 statements, or take the input and put the 2 statements of sort and print into another function, and then call that function, which will sort and print it separated hash. So yeah, multiple ways to do that. Yeah, so shall we move on to the last question? Yeah, so let's discuss question 3. So question 3 is asking us to accept 2 integer inputs a and b, and we have to print all the composite numbers. So what does composite numbers means? Which are not prime. Yeah, which are not prime. So we have to avoid printing prime numbers. Yeah, so in simple English, what this question is asking us to do is we have to avoid printing all the prime numbers lying between the number a and b, including both the numbers a and b, and we will print all the non-prime numbers. Yeah, we don't have to, so that means we need to So now again the same thing we'll do is what we did for question 1. So now what will be the first step? You can unmute and tell me how we can approach this problem. So first step would be taking input, right? Taking input A and B. And now in the second step, what we have to do? Now for this you can unmute and tell me what should be the next step.
We find the greater number of A and B.
A and B.
And then we will run a for loop in which the range will be len of the range will be the number of the value of the greater integer.
Right.
And then we will see that if I is greater than if I equal the smaller number or L is less than the larger number, then we will print A and B and the numbers between them.
Okay, but we need to meanwhile within the for loop we need to check, right, if the number is prime or not, and then print that prime. Sorry, not print that prime. If the number is prime, then not print, right? So check is prime, right? That number. Yeah. So that means we need to write one function which is named is prime that will return either true or false value. Yeah, it should return boolean value true or false. Now we can call this within the if function, if is prime. Okay, now one thing we need to think upon here is, you said for loop will be for the range of till the greater number, right? But we have to include both the numbers. Both numbers are inclusive. Like if we go till the greater number, it will stop at greater number -1.
We can do greater number plus
1. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so you have to be mindful about these small details in your programming exam. Yeah, so you have to think whether the till what run the for loop is going. So now we are like, if check prime is true, then do nothing. If this is false, print the number I. Yeah. Okay, everyone agrees. Yeah, so Shobha ji, you remember we have returned this is prime function. I don't remember exactly in which week's assignment we had written, but we had checked for 2, if is equal to 2, then it is not prime. So there are many conditions. So I have taken this is prime function from that program as it is. Yeah. So we are defining if it is prime. If the number is true, number is 2, then we are returning 2. If the number is less than 2, that means if number is 1, 0 or any negative number, then we are returning false. Then because they are neither prime nor composite numbers, neither prime nor prime. So we are tackling that situation in that way. If it is greater than if it is less than 2, then we are returning false. Then in the for loop we are checking if the number is modulus is remainder. If that number divided by I is equal to 0, then we are returning false. Yeah. So this I had explained that day only why it is 2. So 2 is the increment step. Now how many till what we will keep incrementing that. So because everything, so for every number we can have the 2 because if we are checking for, let me go there, at that time also I had confused you a lot. So if we want to check if the 50 is prime or not, how we will do, we'll divide it by 2 and check for 25, right? So when we are starting from 1, then we can go till 25 and stop. If it is not so it is always wisest to stop at the half of that particular number. Yeah, so that to avoid unnecessary iterations. So that's the whole concept of using 2 comma num here. So we are incrementing it by 2 and then we are returning false if their remainder is 0. Yeah, the modulus is 0. Remainder is 0. Then we are returning false, otherwise we are returning true. So this is our prime function. So we have covered this prime function in previous weeks also. So here we are separating separately accepting inputs, because we don't want to store them in the list, because that doesn't give us any advantage. Yeah, so it is the same for loop condition which Aditya had explained, from the range a to b plus 1. Yeah, so we are starting from a and going till b plus 1. And if this is not prime, then we are printing I, and if it is prime, then do nothing. So that means the else part is not there. So if it is not prime, then that means if whenever this numbers is returning false, then we will print. Okay, so let us see what is the testing input asked. Yeah, so 10, 20. Let us check for 10 and 20. Okay, it is compiling now. Hopefully in couple of minutes it will return. Yeah, so 10 and 20. So 10, 12, 14, 15, 16, 18 and 20. So it has not printed all the prime numbers, it has printed only the composite numbers, which were, yeah. So you want to test any other two numbers input? Let me run it, and you can enter either in the chat box or unmute and tell me which number you want to enter first. I'm just asking for input.
I'm 0 and 20.
What the first number, Aditya? What did you say?
I'm 0.
0. Okay.
And I'm 20.
20. Let us see. Yeah. Yeah, so 0 is coming, 1 is coming. So now if we enter the negative number, it will also print all the negative numbers. Yeah, because our prime function is checking this condition, no?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah, yes, Aditya?
Ma'am, it has printed 1 also, but 1 is not prime.
Neither prime nor composite, yeah. Yes. Agreed. That's why I'm explaining this condition, because of this condition it has printed. Because our prime this prime function, this condition which I'm trying to highlight very badly, desperately, yeah, this one, I highlighted if number is less than 2, then return false. So that means we need to modify this condition. If number is equal to 1, then return maybe true, because that is true for this particular context where we want to print all the non-prime numbers. Yeah. So maybe for this particular context we need to modify this is prime function a little bit. Yeah? So now Aditya has highlighted another important point which all of us can take note of, is always try the outlier input so that our program works for all kinds of input. Yeah. So I had taken this is prime function as it is. I did not write it again. We had written it some few weeks back for this programming assignment. So I took this code as it is from that. I did not modify it. But Aditya's test input of 0 and 20, it pointed out that it is printing 0 also and it is 1 also. So 1 is not a composite number. So it should not be printing 1. So that means we should modify this is prime function, this condition, if number is less than 2. Then what is happening? Then I think it should also return true for that, so that it doesn't print. Yeah, so we can try doing this. So now let us try and try for 0 and 20. Yeah, 0 and 20. So now again it will. Okay, so now it has started from 4, but it has skipped 3. What happened to 3? Yeah, 3 is prime. Yeah, absolutely correct. Yeah. So now Aditya, I think it is working fine. Yeah, so it started from 4. It will not print 1. It will not print 2. But it should print 3 because 3 is prime. So it is somehow missing 3. We need to modify this code again.
Ma'am, it has printed on right numbers. 3 is not prime.
Oh yeah, it is not prime. I don't know why I'm thinking it will print all the prime. Yeah, so now it is working correct, right? So 4, 5, 6, 17 नहीं है, 19 नहीं है, 13 नहीं है. Yeah, so now it is working fine. Okay, so that is how so one of the important lesson today was to check all the outlier conditions and modify our code accordingly. Yeah, so we are done for the day. So any more doubts, any more points to be discussed? So nothing to be discussed. I'm audible, right? Nobody's responding.
Ma'am, you're audible.
Yeah, nobody's responding. So there's nothing discussed. Last week's you mean the collab notebook? I might have missed uploading the collab notebook in the folder. Okay, I'll do it this week. Yeah, I will do it this week. For week 11 and week 10 together, I will upload it in the folder. Yeah. Somehow, there are too many things to be uploaded, so sometimes some files get skipped. Yeah, so I will upload this week. Yeah, so for programming test, I will say this one point which you can keep in mind is try to think algorithmically, develop algorithm first, like right in the question 1, how we approached question 1 today. So that was the right way to think. First you think in English and simultaneously you think how you will implement it in Python. So what do I mean by algorithm is write down how you will solve that particular problem in English and Python mix, and then convert that into a proper syntax in your the editor. Yeah, so that is the one way in which you can approach even the problem which you have not solved before. So mostly you will get the similar questions which we have solved, so you would have noticed that your current assignment questions, the programming assignment questions, and the previous runs assignment questions which we discuss in this session are sometimes same or similar in nature, only a little bit of difference here and there. So you will get the programming questions also which will be of the similar nature, and you can tackle them in the similar manner. Yeah, so try to again make a list of the functions which we are repeatedly using. Try to get the syntax right. Again, for coding, the main key tip would be to practice as much as you can, so that you can think of new ways to tackle the same problem. You get well versed with the syntax of different functions. You get to know what are the functions available, because we had seen last week, I think Shobhaji pointed out, I had written a code, I had written own function to do something, I think some swapping of uppercase to lowercase, which could be done using just a single function. Like Aditya also suggested that we can write our own function for sorting, which I did, I think last week only. I had written some code for converting uppercase to lowercase, which can be done using a simple function also. Yeah, so likewise, give yourself exposure of different functions so that you avoid spending time into writing large functions which are not really asked for or not required, which can be done in a simple line as well. Yeah, so for that, practice is the key. Yeah, and again, don't be scared, do as much as you can, and practice whatever the assignment questions from the previous run we have discussed, and the assignment questions from current run. If you practice, if you try coding for them on your own, that will be enough of practice from exam point of view, from scoring point of view. Yeah, so even though the course material covers so many things, the assignment questions do not cover all those things. Yeah, so focus on what is getting covered in the assignment questions. Don't worry about what is getting covered in the lectures. In the lectures there are many high level things are also discussed, so don't worry about that. So can 10.00 float value can be considered as a composite number? So Alok, I have kind of handled this problem of float by using the typecasting. I'm keeping it very simple. Yeah, so I'm typecasting input as integer. So even though you enter 10.00, my program is going to convert it into integer and consider is just 10, not 10.00. Yeah, so I'm cleverly using the typecasting to avoid such confusions and confrontations from program. Yeah. So these are the general concerns about any code. You know how you will handle different data type. So one way out of all these things is typecasting. Very clever way out is typecasting, so that our compiler doesn't get confused between different data types, and it considers our input the way we want it to be and not getting confused. So here actually in the question, the composite number was I have not copied the explanation, but there is a explanation written before test case inputs, right? So that explanation said all the non-prime numbers are to be printed. So even though they have used the word composite, they meant all the non-prime numbers. Yeah. Okay, if there are no more doubts, then we can close this week's session and maybe meet next week for the one last time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you all for joining, and we'll meet next week. And maybe next week, next week also we can discuss some tips for preparing for the exams, both theory and the programming. Yeah, so mostly I'll be repeating what I told you today. Yeah, but then we can share tips among ourselves also. You know, if you have some other tips to improve your programming skills, then do share with the group at large. Oh, this Sunday only. Oh. Okay, fine. Then all the best, all of you. Do well in your programming exam. I'm sure you all, if you practice and if you will go through, I will share all the Python, the collab sheets this week. I'll cross check once again if I've shared. I will share all the weeks so you can go through the code through the Python notebooks, which I use for every week. Yeah. So I'll do that as soon as possible. Yeah. So all the best, everyone. Okay, so ending this meeting for all. Let's meet. Let's quickly verify the third question. Third question. Okay. Yeah, here is the third question, Alokji. Yeah. Done. Okay, great. Yeah, so ending this meeting for the day, and I'll be sharing the collab notebook link with everyone. You can access that through the Swayam portal. Yeah, so see you next week, and good luck for your programming exam.